Hello, you're watching the Post-Up Show with me, Cyrus Rogers. That is the main man, Kaunda, Chama. We are going to bring you another exciting episode, but this time we're talking about something that nobody wants to talk about, Kaunda. That's injuries. Nobody wants to talk about injuries. I suppose this is kind of like the injury version of Allen Iverson. Practice? We're talking about injuries?
Actually, I'm going to blame the Lakers' injuries on you, Cyrus, because you've been predicting them like the Oracle of Doom. That LeBron works too hard, he's gonna get injured. AD, what, and guess what? It has come to pass.
Don't blame me that if you stack a whole bunch of boxes on a guy, he gets hurt. All I'm saying is this stuff happens. So today's episode, we're talking about are injuries impacting the MVP race and the Rookie of the Year race? But we look at them in terms of how the impact will or potentially should actually change the way we talk about who's happening, or rather what's happening around the MVP race. So let's look at it holistically. The first big one was the Joel Embiid injury. Kaunda, I mean, that really sort of hit us for six.
Cyrus, Joel Embiid, perennial all-star now, a walking double-double, the de facto leader of the 76ers, an African talent. Cyrus, I can put so many accolades on this young man, and he was representing. As much as a LeBron fan I am, as much of a LeBron fan that I am, but Joel Embiid, Cyrus, before he got that injury, he was putting up impressive numbers. You know, and then you start thinking, all of a sudden he gets the knee injury and it puts him out for a couple of weeks. And that Cyrus impacts that. You know, your 29.9 points a game. You know, it impacts all of that. You're walking double-double and your numbers go down. And people start thinking about, okay, should he be even a contender anymore after missing so many games? And when we compare it, if you miss a substantial amount of games, they stop counting you in the MVP race, because
that's true.
What kind of value did you really add to your team if you were sitting on the bench? Because, you know, not even sitting on the bench, like sitting out games because you were injured. The same thing can be said for LeBron, because he's going to miss a good number of games. AD, who was originally at the beginning, Cyrus was saying potentially maybe he could contend. I think he's out of the picture completely. So this, you know, it complicates things a little bit for the contenders, because you're no longer a front runner. Because Joel Embiid, who in my opinion was a front runner, is no longer a front runner. LeBron James, by the end of this spell, won't be a front runner, because he's only expected back sometime in April, maybe 6th April, earliest, Cyrus. And that affects his numbers. And look, for the likes of Nikola Jokic, you know, who's looking very good, and maybe Giannis might make it back to back. I don't know.
But that's the whole discussion here, Kaunda, because, you know, when we look at it, I mean, like we mentioned Giannis, and we look at the 29.5 points a game, 11.5 rebounds a game. This guy was playing at an elite level. He was really taking the NBA by storm. Everybody had to listen to what Embiid was saying, because he was saying it so lovely on the court. He goes down injured, and then that skews the entire narrative. Then all of a sudden, LeBron James almost becomes the de facto MVP frontrunner because of who he is, what he's been doing at his age, and just what he's achieving so much this season. Then he goes down injured. Yes, there have been people talking about the fact that it wasn't a basketball play that he got injured on. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I do think that if you're, you know, fighting for the ball, some people will do what they need to do. In the very same game, Dennis Schroeder was diving all over the place like it was a pool. But regardless, this is the kind of stuff that happens. Now we look at the people who are still fit in the MVP race. And that has to be Nikola Jokic is the number one guy there. You know, when you look at Embiid's numbers, they were hugely impressive. But just behind his numbers were Nikola Jokic's numbers, and they were looking fantastic too. Now, when we see them, 27.1 points a game, 11.3 rebounds a game, and 8.6 assists a game is just phenomenal. Do you think this is the guy who is the front runner now? I mean, is that who this is?
He's 1.4 assists shy of a triple-double, averaging a triple-double, Cyrus. That is definitely the front runner, because Cyrus, even when LeBron was fit, I wasn't casting LeBron's name in stone, because I know what Nikola Jokic can do. I know what he's capable of doing, and I know the impact he has on those Denver Nuggets, Cyrus. him and Jamal Murray have been that 1-2 punch. But even when you look at Nikola Jokic's performance by himself, you know he's an impactful player. He definitely adds a lot of value to that Nuggets squad, Cyrus. And even when LeBron was split, like I said, it wasn't cast in stone. Nikola Jokic was performing. It's just that Joel Embiid was he had that edge. He had the edge.
Yeah,
he had a bit of an edge
did.
over.
He was so
over
dominant.
LeBron and Jokic. He was just very dominant in every game you watched. Even if it was a winning effort or a losing effort, you knew that Joel Embiid. And I think, Cyrus, it comes from all the the lash he's taken from the likes of Shaquille O'Neal, who have said, "Hey, look, back in my days, at that size, I was dominating Joel," and rightfully so. Sometimes Joel seemed as if he was taking the league like it was a joke, like he was on holiday at this place where
he was playing ball.
And
he was playing ball.
He's so dominant, he can just play ball and not play with a purpose, if you will. Because recently he's been playing with a purpose. Playing with a purpose.
And you see that.
I want the Sixers to finish top of the East, and I want to get that MVP accolade. Maybe bring it back to Yaoundé, to Cameroon, and show the people that Africans can go to the NBA and bring that accolade back again, like the likes of Akeem Olajuwon have done in the past. So Cyrus, I think he was playing with purpose, and it's just unfortunate that he had to go down with that injury. But Joel Embiid this season looked like he wanted to get it, and I to a certain extent, I'm glad Shaq was getting in his ear. And I'm glad Shaq was, talking trash about him, saying, "No, you deserve to perform better," because maybe that's the fuel he needed.
I get that. I'm still not one of those where I don't buy all of Shaq's antics, as being the sort of fuel that fires people to the top. But I do think that, especially from a positional perspective, Shaq was the guy. And I mean, he's built the same way as Embiid, but Shaq was a back to the basket kind of player. Embiid has taken a lot of time to face up, and so his face up game is incredible. When you look at his handles, how he's able to go at certain players, and he's just not back down. And I think that's been a different Embiid this season. I know that we've also spoken about perhaps it's fatherhood, where he wants to show his kid, hey, this is what daddy can do. But I think at the same time, you also look at the other guys, and you look at Jokic, and what Jokic brings to the game is just so silky, so smooth, and yet it's so impactful. And that's why the Nuggets have been there or thereabouts. They've struggled this season because the other punch in the 1-2 punch at Jamal Murray just wasn't necessarily doing it. And that's one of the key problems here. Now, let's look a little bit at one of the other characters, an African character who has and should be in this conversation, and it's Giannis Antetokounmpo, because he is a back-to-back MVP. His numbers are shouting MVP numbers, averaging 29 points a game, 11.7 rebounds a game, and 6.4 assists a game is ludicrously good. And this is what we get with Giannis whenever he steps on the court, especially when he's focused, is that he starts to really amp up his game and ramp up his game. Now, I know that they talk about voter fatigue, and I know people are always looking at this and saying, oh man, are we going to give it to Giannis again? But when you look at those numbers, and then you also add that to the fact that the other guys who were the front runners have sort of fallen off in terms of LeBron and Embiid in terms of injury, Giannis has a shot here. And I think that if you compare him to Jokic, the numbers are very, very similar. Jokic isn't doing as well with the Nuggets as Giannis is doing with the Bucks, and so there's a real argument to be made that maybe Giannis is the front runner as opposed to Jokic. Now, I'm not sure that. I mean, for us as Africans, we'd love to see Giannis go. I mean, a three-peat in MVPs. When was the last time that happened? So
well,
do we look at it that way?
In the change in the upcoming movie, they might have to edit a few scenes if it goes back to back to back. They might have to change the intro.
It'll be in text.
The opening of that movie would have to change.
It'll be a freeze frame at the end in text. Giannis is a 3-time MVP, back to back to back. You heard it right. But do you think that Giannis could be considered ahead of Jokic?
Look, Cyrus, there's a possibility, but like what you mentioned earlier, carries a lot of weight in terms of like fatigue. In that, I don't think, has it ever happened before in the NBA where a player goes 3 times MVP back to back?
Not the modern NBA. Not the modern NBA. The day, you would have had guys like Bill Russell and Wilt.
Even guys like LeBron that have got 4 have had spaces in between getting those MVP trophies. Now, Cyrus, I think when LeBron and Embiid were fully fit, I think he didn't have a shot. I think he was out of the conversation. I think fatigue did play a part, and the Lakers were just doing so well, and the Sixers were doing so well, and having the two leaders doing what they were doing, obviously they took the 1 and 2 spots. But now that they seem to be shaky, and you don't know whether they're going to stay in the race, it could be a Jokic and Giannis race. And I think Giannis has a shot, depending on what happens by the end of the regular season.
Yeah. No, I'm in total agreement with you. But let's look at a couple other guys who might also be put into this narrative. James Harden is up there. Yes, his trade to the Brooklyn Nets might have changed things, especially since his antics in Houston might have put some of the voters off. But he's averaging 25.3 points a game, 11.2 assists a game, and 7.9 rebounds a game. That's incredible numbers. Now, Harden is one fit, and you're looking at a guard. It's great to see some guards putting their names up. And then you say, well, is there another guard who could potentially get in the race? People are talking about Dame Lillard, and his numbers say he should not be discounted. He's averaging 30.1 points a game, 7.7 assists a game, and 4.4 rebounds a game. This guy is playing Kaunda. And so there is also another school of thought that says, why are we looking at the big guys like the Jokic's first when Dame Lillard is doing that every night in the NBA? The Portland Trailblazers might not necessarily be blazing a trail, see what I did there. But Lillard is one of the best players in the NBA by far. Do you think his candidacy deserves a shot? And what about Harden?
Well, first of all, let me go to Harden, Cyrus. Harden, I think the Houston antics might play against him, because people are going to say, if you're looking at MVP, we're going to look at the entire season. So we're also going to consider what happened in Houston. And I think
look at that time you weren't playing.
Yeah, he caught a bad rap in the way he exited Houston. There were times when he wasn't playing, but when he would play, he would perform well. But there was a time where he looked like he wasn't even interested in suiting up and going on that hardwood. So that might play against him. Now, I'm going to say something that I hope I don't come face to face with Dame anytime soon, because a lot of people have always seen Dame to be like a poor man's Steph Curry. If you will. I say that with all due respect, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I respect Dame Lillard. I even buy his rap albums. I buy the Dame Dollar albums. He can rap. He can play basketball.
Yeah.
But in the presence of other elite point guards such as Steph Curry, such as Kyrie Irving, he's always been, relegated to that 4th, 5th spot. It's always like, okay, there's Steph, then there's Kyrie, then there's James Harden in the mix there.
But maybe that's also got to do with who he plays for.
Put Dame Lillard down there.
Not because of his lack of skill, but because of who he plays for. That's the problem, and I think that's one of the things that counts against him, is this idea of him not necessarily being in the national spotlight in the US, and thus not gaining enough of the spotlight internationally, because Lillard really is one of the premier point guards in the NBA. Do you think he's got a shot?
Based on numbers, yes, Cyrus. Based on popularity, I don't think Dame Lillard is that popular that he could creep up and become, an MVP. It could happen. I'm not writing him off, but if you look at the numbers, let's just say we wind up with Jokic, Harden, and Lillard. On a popularity contest alone, I put Jokic ahead of Harden and Lillard.
Yeah,
that's the situation, Cyrus. Yeah. No matter how you look at it, because at the end of the day, it also becomes a popularity contest. So on popularity alone, Jokic wins because he's the most popular of the three. Harden would have been a front runner, but because of the narrative that he's had this season, it puts him off. Dame Lillard, he is great when he's great, but he's not a fan favorite. If you know what I'm trying to get.
I get what
you're saying. He doesn't strike me as a fan favorite, which is unfortunate because he's a great player.
Yeah, look, and I think that's the thing. Although Dame time is his thing and is a thing, it might not be Dame's time. But that's the MVP race. Let's move across to the Rookie of the Year race, just in terms of to close the show off. And one of the most upsetting things was seeing LaMelo Ball go down with a fractured arm. And he was putting up really, really good numbers, 15.9 points a game, 6.1 assists a game, and 5.9 rebounds a game. When he was given the reins there in Charlotte, he really didn't step back, and he actually took the game to a lot of the guys. And LaMelo Ball is one of those young players who has just stood out. Now, when you look at it from a numbers perspective, you then have to look at Anthony Edwards as being the presumptive Rookie of the Year candidate, because his numbers from a scoring perspective are better than LaMelo Ball's, because he's averaging 16.7 points a game. But his overall impact on the team doesn't seem to be as big, considering how bad the Timberwolves are. Maybe that's not on Anthony Edwards, and a rookie shouldn't necessarily be judged on how well or how poorly his team is playing. But with LaMelo Ball out, and they say he might still come back this season, I do think that we're looking at somebody else taking over the Rookie of the Year reins, and that person potentially is Anthony Edwards. Do you agree with that? Because I think the numbers say that.
Yes, according to the numbers, Cyrus, it looks like it could be Anthony Edwards, accolade to take. It's unfortunate because LaMelo Ball brought so much to the game, and like a lot of people have said, he is the Ball that LaVar had promised us. It wasn't Lonzo, although I got enough respect for Lonzo as a point guard. It wasn't LiAngelo. It was actually LaMelo, the new Melo, or the other Melo, or the little Melo. I don't know, call him what you will, but he's been quite a great player. I've loved the look of him on the hardwood. He performs, he assists, he scores, he looks comfortable. He's got little respect for LeBron, but we'll sweep that to the side. Cyrus, I actually I think it would be unfair if Anthony Edwards didn't win it based on the performance of the Timberwolves, because if we look at the reigning Rookie of the Year, who is Morant, it's not as if the Grizzlies were putting up, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious numbers there, Cyrus.
Sheesh.
So,
the lyrical linguistics. He's doing it.
It's not like they were putting up fantastic numbers, but
Ja
Morant's performance just couldn't be ignored. But I understand where some people might come from, because Anthony Edwards is more of a scoring. He's more of a scorer than a LaMelo. So LaMelo does more than just scoring. He also assists, he also rebounds.
Yeah.
But Anthony Edwards is busy like painting posters. Like that's what, you tell rookies. Walk up to the league, paint as many posters as you can.
Hold my phone and take a picture of this. But then there is one other rookie who needs to be kept in the conversation. That's Tyrese Haliburton. And he's also on a team that's been fairly up and down, more down than up in the Sacramento Kings. He's averaging 12.8 points, 5 assists, and 3.4 rebounds a game. Now, his numbers just aren't up there with the other two guys who are the front runners. So I think he's more than likely going to be the runner-up in this particular race. However, his overall fit with that team and fit into the NBA has been incredible. And so we have to talk about the fact that Haliburton's been there. But Kaunda, you think that Anthony Edwards is going to be the Rookie of the Year. I think so too, because of the way the numbers look and because LaMelo might be out for an extended period of time. And then also in the MVP race, I think that injuries have definitely made this a different race. I don't know if it's robbed us of the race that we wanted, but I think that as African basketball fans, we would have loved to see Joel Embiid become the MVP. Goodness knows it might still happen. I'm going to hold out hope, and I know you are too.
Absolutely.
So that's it. We've come to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for watching the Post Up Show. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel. We love to have as many subscribers as possible, and tell your friends about the Post Up Show. We do not mess around when it comes to talking about basketball, because this is our first love. Okay, maybe our second love. Okay, it's a love, but we're going to leave it at that.